Welcome to Thriving in Construction, where we share insights, inspire growth, and break down barriers in the construction industry. Today, we're thrilled to have Nancy Weinman with us as a true powerhouse in the worlds of architecture and construction. Nancy has spent over 30 years pushing boundaries and redefining what it means to lead in this industry. From managing Macy's multi-million dollar projects as their first female project manager to leading $1.4 billion school in New Jersey, her career has been nothing short of extraordinary. And let's not forget her work in crafting stunning designs like Microsoft's Silicon Valley office interiors and desert contemporary homes that have landed her features in Lux and Dream Homes. But what's just as inspiring is her commitment and her passion for mentorship, at the same time balancing a complex business life in construction. Today, we'll explore how she's mastered the art of leading teams, building trust, and navigating the challenges of complex projects, all while paving the way for future leaders. Get ready for an inspiring conversation with the incredible Nancy Weinman. Before we dive into today's conversation, I want to let you know about an exciting opportunity. If you are a project manager ready to transition into leadership or a CEO looking to scale your construction business, join our transformative 2-day workshop from project manager to CEO happening March 1st and 2nd of this year. So, Nancy,
Yes.
let's get you started. So grateful for you to be part of this podcast, learn more about you, your career in construction, 30 years.
Yes.
And I just learned that you are living in Sedona, which is beautiful, a beautiful place. So
Yes.
I can imagine the journey that took you there. But I would like to know more about what gets you into construction design. What was the emotional juice that you had that allowed you to take what were you thinking back then when you decided to get into this industry? What were you thinking? What were your emotions? How did that happen?
So I'm a New Yorker. I was raised in Manhattan. So I was, and at the time, I was a cellist for 9 years. So I went and when I went to Aspen Music School, I was enthralled with the Southwest and the West. And so I wanted to come out to the Southwest. So I went to school at University of New Mexico, and shortly after there, I found where I was going to be practicing, and I understood who my teacher was, and I went back home and said, this is not going to work. Like, I don't like my teacher, and the practice room is in the basement. Like, I'm not doing this for 4 years. So my parents were very the opposite of helicopter parents. They said, go figure it out.
Oh.
So I went to the Museum of Modern Art. There was an exhibit on Italian furniture. I was always good in math and also an artist. So I came home and I said, that's it, I'll just be an architect. So I go back to the university and I knock on the door of architecture department. And basically, I didn't really realize it, but I was, one of 3%. And it didn't really I didn't have any reaction to that. I was just, I'm moving, I'm going, I'm moving, we're doing this. So that was an interesting time to start my career, right? So so I was an architect, and in the Four Corners area in the 80s, there was an oil and gas boom. So I went from New Mexico to the Four Corners area, and eventually to another town in New Mexico, a very small town, like no New Yorkers are in this small town. It's like, not even as big as Gallup, New Mexico. So I lived there for a while. And, but what happened was I was doing architecture all the time. And I believe that you make your best moves in desperation. Like, if my children are going to interview and they really, really, really need the money, you will do better in that interview than if you don't need it, right?
Yeah.
So my move to construction happened in the late 80s. There was hardly any architecture going on. There was no building. I was living in San Francisco at the time. And so I had somebody approach me and said, if you would consider being what was what's called a program manager, right? I'm grouping together architects and real estate people, and we're going to start a new company and we're going to do program management. What that means is there's, I saw on your website, people are sometimes confused. What's a construction manager? What's a project manager? A program manager does the entire program. They hire the architect, they hire the contractor, and they manage the project as an owner's representative. So we were representing the Bank of America, who bought out Security Pacific, and all of us architects became program managers. Okay, so we were not only suggesting what the design should be, but we're finding the right contractors, and we had to turn these banks in 120 days. We had to do telecom and signage and the bank vaults and the carpeting and the desks, everything, 120 days. So that was the first time I really opened my eyes to construction. And it's contagious construction. It's a lot of action. We all like that. So I stuck with it. And I just think it's a great avenue to go from architecture, because that way you get your architecture built, right?
Oh, contagious. I have to ask you a follow-up question.
Mhm.
What did you find contagious about construction? I mean, I have my idea on what it is, but for you, what was that you said?
So if you design something and it sits on the boards and it never gets built, you're like, but if you know how to get your project off the ground and get it built and see it, and at the end of the day, you go, I did that. That's contagious. You just want to do more and more of that. And many architects don't even know that if they moved into another field, they could push their design to being built.
That's an interesting perspective. It's also the perspective kind of a developer too, that more or less they're sharing on those roles. I managed a large program for the city of Fort Lauderdale, so I get
Program
it.
management, right?
Yes. It's beautiful. And you also work for Microsoft, or you did some?
So I didn't work for them. I worked for a design firm in San Francisco, and that was one of our many clients. So we designed the lobby as well as other parts of the campus.
So did you also do stores?
No, I did not. And in fact, when I was in San Francisco, I interviewed to become a project manager for Apple, because they were telling me that they were going to start stores and they hadn't started them yet. And it was probably the most interesting interview that I ever had, and I can tell you why. But they didn't start the stores shortly after that interview. It was actually years later that they started. But no, I didn't work on their stores.
And what were the challenges that you saw, when you were working for these large entities, doing program management? What were the biggest challenge that you faced?
Well, I was certainly one of very few women, certainly the only woman on the top tier. So one thing I can tell you is we all kind of started as project managers, but to get to the director role, I think it came about because whenever we would have meetings, I would constantly raise my hand and participate, ask questions, what have you, just try to be recognized. And not for the sole purpose of being recognized, I was truly curious about what I was asking for. But I do believe that I was recognized because my curiosity was there. So, that's certainly one thing. But the other thing, when you're in a large group as a woman, it's very important, I think, to have your credentials. So it's a big effort to become a registered architect, which I did. But shortly, like when I worked for the firm that did the Bank of America conversion, we also did other public jobs, a lot of government jobs. And so I became a member of CMAA. And I think once you have a project management credential, you're viewed to be slightly different or slightly better than the other project managers. And I think for a woman, that's very important to get those credentials.
I think it's a very important distinction. As a woman, in general, we want to be seen, and
yes.
it's not so much the recognition as it appears superficially on the word, but it's a natural thing for a woman to be seen for the person that you love. You want the person to pay attention, to be present when they're talking to you. Being seen is important in our relationships. And in our work, in our industry, like you said, there's not that many women. And I think sometimes we do have to work a little harder
We
to.
have to work a little harder, but I remember, for instance, when we worked for the Bank of America, and that was the very beginning, one of the people that was in charge was a woman. And quite honestly, sometimes she just had it with talking to the guys, and she would come to me and talk to me. So I think it works the other way also. Sometimes if you're working for a corporation and there's only a few women, that connection is so important to the whole success of the program because they need somebody to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So architecture, construction management, how do you balance your life? How do you transition from that space? How do you balance your life, your other things that you like? Perhaps you said that you had an interest in mentorship, interest in helping other women. You joined NAWIC. How do you balance architecture, engineering, program management, networking, and becoming who you are today? How do you transition that?
Okay, so first of all, back in the days, I was raising my 3 children, right? So we can't forget about that, right? So that's a big deal. And at the time, I had a very demanding husband, so that was a thing. I remember when I worked for Federated Department Stores, we were building Macy's stores. Each of us project managers got probably 5 stores. Each store was valued at $100 million of construction. And people would look at how much money we're spending to see how fast we're going to figure out who's the better project manager. And some of the times I would take home a shopping bag full of paperwork and just say, I got to do this on a given part of the weekend. You just have to drill through what you have to do. So, but I think that one of the attributes that I have that people recognize is that even when I have a lot to do and I'm still moving fast, I do it with a certain amount of grace or ease so that I'm not stressed and people see that I'm not stressed. So when things get really heated in construction, if I'm not stressed and I have confidence and I go, it's no big deal, we're just going to do this and then we're going to do this, everything's going to be fine, they follow me. So I think if you can calm yourself or you present yourself as a relatively calm person, that's also contagious.
Yes,
And
because people wonder, how does she do it? How
right.
does she do it?
So one time I was reprimanded for being too calm because I finished this beautiful apartment in New York where we put 2 apartments together. It was on 5th Avenue, huge real estate, over 10 million for sure. I sit down with a client. I had already done his office and his other house and we're sitting. He goes, look at that baseboard. There is a cut right at the window that faces Central Park West, Central Park. Nancy, that's unbelievable. How could you make that happen? How could you allow that to happen? So I go, Dr. Har, it's not really a big deal. They can take it out tomorrow, recut it and paint it. He's like, you're not excited about this? I go, no, they take out baseboard. I mean, the thing is, it's construction. It's not surgery. My husband was an ophthalmologist. He said even in his business, they're never allowed to say the word oops. Well, we have a lot of oops, right?
Yeah.
We can move things, we can change things, we can change our mind, we can move a wall. It's not a big deal. So you have to get your clients on your side or whomever to say, yes, this is just business. This is what we're going to do.
That's interesting and an interesting approach, but I want to talk about clients, but I want to go back to your 3 kids and you balancing the life. You said you had a challenging
husband. It's okay. My late husband.
Former husband, and it was and you had 3 kids and obviously a demanding project, work or career that there's
and we were living in San Francisco, which was very expensive. We lived in a tiny house, with the 5 of us, and it was intense. So at the time, you know, so you're wondering how I deal with that, like physically, mentally?
My theory is that women in general, right? Where not everybody's the same, but in general, I believe that women want to be a great at whatever we do,
Yes,
and we want to be great daughters, great spouse, partners to our husbands.
we want to be there for everybody.
We want to be great for a great mother, an
Great
outstanding
cook.
professional, great cook, tennis player. I mean,
Mhm.
want to be great at everything. I'm not sure why, but that's how
That's
I
true.
see it.
That's how we're wired.
So, and I actually wrote a book that is called "Be Who You Long For," and I believe we put some dreams on the side
Mhm.
because of these expectations that we have, and how much we want to serve others that we love, people that we love, and people that are around us, right? So when I ask the question is, how do you get yourself to be so successful in your professional career and transition from your past marriage, and then make sure that your kids were, I'm sure they turn out to be amazing. So how do you transition? How did you do that? And the follow-up questions to even that is, you mentioned calm, connected. So those words, they tell me that you basically focus on your state, that you understand, you have a connection with yourself that tells me you know when you're calm and when you are connected. So how do you get yourself from living the life that you live to today being able to say how important that is? So it's a
So I
loaded
think
question.
a couple of ways that I would answer that. I mean, there's a couple of things that come into being, but um, you know, your health in your body is definitely a thing. I mean, when I was 45 and I was in the thick of this, was the first time I used to go to these stair classes, you know, the step classes, up and down, up and down. And there was a door open and all these people were coming out and they were calm and they weren't sweating. And I'm like, so what are they doing? And I found out that they were doing Bikram yoga.
Oh, I love yoga. I love Bikram.
So I started yoga when I was 45, did it, I mean, religiously 3 times a week with some of the most powerful teachers in New York. And I think that after my husband passed and just things, you know, we moved back to New York, I would say that it just released a lot of energy and re-energized me. And to this day, I'm a believer. I just think, you know, first of all, that mind body thing that they teach you, it's really good to have that as a strong foundation that you can come back to that and say, look, are we really stressed about that baseboard, or can we do it and it's really no big deal and we should just move on and think about something larger, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing, absolutely. And I think the other thing is with children and with employees and with, you know, team members, sort of the same way my parents were very, I mean, my mom was a working mom in the 50s, and she was a travel agent for a ballet company. Can you imagine how stressful that everybody has to be there for the performance, you know? And
Wow.
you have no control over the airlines, right? She would book like groups of 50 all the time, Baryshnikov and ABT and Joffrey. And so, but she was like doing her thing. And so she's like, you figure it out. And I think a lot of times I'm pretty hands off with my children, and I always say, like my son, he'll call me and say, I've decided to do this. He just called me and said, I decided to join the Air Force. Didn't check with me, but he's, you know, as an electrical engineer, he's on that program. And I think if you allow space and let people, you know, manage their own life, and you expect them to manage their own life or their position in a company or their position in a team, like we're showing you what we expect, but we're not telling you. We're telling you by representation, right?
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's a good way to teach people. Like, I expect out of you what I do to, you know, how I
Yeah.
do business. And so, you know, I learned this thing when I went to Harvard Business School. Like, if you have a new client and you talk to them on the phone, okay, I'm going to send you a proposal by Friday. And suppose you don't send that proposal until Tuesday. They're going to think that they can slide a couple days because you allowed you to slide a couple days. But
Yeah.
if you say and do exactly what you say you will do, then they get it that they better do that when they're talking to you. That's, and I find that it's such a simple thing, but to this day, it still reverberates in my brain. Like I'm trying to start a contractor in a job and I don't have approval from the board. And I told him I would give him money on this day, but I can't because of that. And I said, I don't want this to be a representation of our relationship going forward because I do as much as I say, assuming that I have control over that. But more importantly, it was just a good conversation to have. Like, I'm going to do what I say. You need to do what you say, or, just tell me the truth.
Or communicate a change in plans, because sometimes stuff
Right.
happens. But sometimes I find that in our industry, especially in our industry, or maybe it's a human behavior, it's things happen, and it's hard sometimes for people to communicate how they feel, what they think. Communication, I believe, it's one of the topics that could get better in our human relationships and in our industry a
Well,
lot.
because everybody wants to be perfect. We want to be the hero of everything and bring it into closure. And when it doesn't work, you don't know exactly what to say. So I used to have a project manager in, I think it was a project in Texas. And I would go there every 2 weeks and find out what was going on, whatever. And I asked him a question, he's hawing around, and I go, whatever his name was, I go, I like my information just like my martini, straight up, no vermouth, no BS, like just give it to me, like I can take it, because we can't solve a problem unless we have the guts of the information.
Yeah. I am the same way. I think I was talking to my son this morning. I am pretty straightforward too. Although I have learned a lot about people, so I'm able to understand more personalities. At the end of the day, my outcome is not to hurt someone, right?
Right.
It's not the outcome, but we do want to have the integrity to be clear and honor us and honor the person, right? Honor who we are. But sometimes it's hard for people to be straightforward, and just because of personalities, some people, it's just hard. So
or they're just shy, right? They're just shy and they just don't know how to get it out.
Yeah, and some people take time to process things. They take their time to think, and so all of that I've learned through my own family and my employees as well. In your leadership style, you mentioned that you allow people, you define the roadmap, and you allow them to, you indicate with your own example how you want the culture to be. Basically, is what I heard.
Exactly.
What do you say in terms of leadership? How do you create, because you manage quite a bit of people, not only internally, but also externally. What was your success in delivering results? How do you get your strategy, who you are, your personality, and how does that translate into delivering outcomes for your clients and the people that you work for? How do you get all of that orchestrated together, knowing that there's several stakeholders in the process?
So I think it sounds simple, but I think it's the basis of a lot of what I do, which is I don't try to come, across as a hard dictator. I try to have fun. I'm usually joking. I want people to want to work with me. Like we're having a good time. Like I've been working actually with the same contractor doing homes here in Sedona. I've known him for 12 years and we have a motto, if we can't have fun, we're done. And basically our thing is we just try to solve problems. We don't play the blame game. So we don't blame, we go directly to solving the problem if there's a problem. And we kind of play around a little bit. Like even when I had this project where we were fixing a bunch of schools, health and safety in New Jersey. And we had a big team and I was in charge of the team. It was all guys and everybody every week had things to do. They went back and then they came back. And so this one particular guy, he never came back with his responsibility. So instead of hammering him for doing that, I made a joke out of it, and we had a big thing of donuts, and it's like, no donuts for you. Anybody that comes here without the information, you don't get a donut. And we just kind of had fun, but they got the point.
Yeah.
I
You
didn't
did-
have to say, this is really a problem and you're making an issue. Like, no donuts for you. And everybody laughed. And now everybody's looking at that guy and he feels the pressure, but it was done kind of in a joking way.
It's a good strategy though. It sounds simple, but it's a good strategy because he didn't feel criticized.
Right. He didn't feel
And-
criticized.
Not a
And
lot of people.
I think the other thing is I try to emphasize at the beginning of the job, if I make a mistake, I try to emphasize that I made a mistake and that I'm okay with it, and encourage other people to make mistakes and be okay with it, because it's just human.
Yeah.
And
Is-
that's, everybody wants like this 100% record. Well, you can't. It's so complicated what we do.
And you following up on that and what you said before about trying to be perfect, or trying to be perfect. And also the fact that being perfect is associated with finishing on time and on budget,
Mhm.
in the general realm of things. How do you encourage in your team or in the group of people that you are able to affect as a leader? How do you encourage the solving problem approach? And you mentioned, I don't like the blame,
Game.
blame game, which it's a bad culture and it's very present
Terrible.
in our industry.
Right.
It's terrible. It's very, very unproductive. You
Mhm.
want to focus on solutions. So how do you, when you are working with someone that you don't know, or you're putting a team together, you put a team together, how do you make that happen with people that are not familiar with your leadership style?
Well, I think that, again, it's a little bit of, being relaxed with the situation. First of all, if you're leading a team, I mean, I used to not be relaxed with sitting at the head of the table, right? There's always like all these guys, but I would have the role and I would try to scoot to the side or whatever, because I wasn't really comfortable being the head of the table, right? But I think that approach of like, you're not really the head. Like, I had a boss and he's like, I work for you, Nancy. What do you need from me to be successful? So it's the upside down thing, like, okay, I'm here for you. You're doing this, that, or the other. What can I do to help you? And just the team approach. And I think that, especially with my, residential clients, when we have a team or we're doing something and say the residential client gets nervous or they're uncomfortable, they don't know what light fixture or they don't know what to pick. I think that I get excited about a project or I'm optimistic. And so then people will follow. So if you walk into a job site and you get really revved up because you're having a great time, because this is happening and that's happening, and you go, oh yeah, let's go over here and let's check this out, and you're super excited, people want to be on your team.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm here with my clipboard. What did you do? I'm marking it off. You're not like in charge. It's like, oh, show me what you did. Oh, I'm so excited. What else? So to be excited, to be optimistic, and to just, teach people by example. Don't blame them for anything. Let them know it's totally human to make a mistake. There's so many pieces and parts. I mean, think of it, just the CSI specification, how many sections are there? Nobody could possibly know everything.
No.
So it's okay to make a mistake. We're just going to learn together.
Yeah. It's just when it's associated with money, it has a different connotation to it. So it's definitely important to know that mistakes are part of the game, and
Yes.
mistakes are more an opportunity to learn. For me as a business owner, because I used to work for large entities, when the pocket hits you, it has a different effect in your emotions. Learning how to really see this as an opportunity to become better. And it was an adaptation for me. Understanding that it's not necessarily, because like you said, it's estimating, you can estimate a project wrong. Or as you grow, your team is doing that. So how do you get better on processes? How do you get better at, you make a mistake, use it as an opportunity to become better processes. And so in your development as a leader and in your career, what was the area in construction, because you were part of the whole process, that you felt you needed to pay more attention to, that you needed more monitoring, more KPIs, more better management? Which one was the one that gave you more, that was harder maybe? Which one did you pay more attention to? You said, if I do this, it's going to be successful. If I don't do this, I might not.
Well, I think that the devil is in the details. So I think that with all projects, I have found that whenever there's animosity and some people think they're right and the other people think they're right and there's a problem, boop, boop, boop. It's like it's always the solution is in the document someplace, whether it's in the specification or it's in the actual documents or what have you. If you go searching for what say the GC is responsible for based on the documents, and sometimes an architect's drawings will only infer that something should be done, but it doesn't say exactly, so it's an interpretation of the documents. This is a little area where I think we get stuck, right? Because it's really not anybody's fault. The architect maybe should have been more complete in his documents, and the contractor maybe should have stopped and asked the question instead of moving forward. And so suddenly you have something that's built, to your point, maybe it has to be torn down, and that's money. And why didn't he stop and ask? Well, why didn't the architect draw it correctly? You know, so then what happens? When I've had a situation like that, which it's not a new situation, quite honestly, if there's money involved, I try to take everybody that's involved and help them all to participate, ask them all to participate. So if we blew $10,000 because we did something wrong and it's sort of everybody's fault, we try to mitigate it so that everybody feels the financial bust.
Accountability.
And they're all accountable. And sometimes we used to call them come to Jesus meetings or whatever, but like, wait a second, you're going this way, he's going this way, the end result looks bad, we need to come together. And again, if you're not blaming, but if you just actually pinpoint, like I remember I was doing something with this big home outfit in Jersey. And I go, well, let's look at the project manual and see what it says, whose responsibility it is. And he goes, oh, project manual. Oh, where would that be? And I'm like, I'm literally looking through his desk and I find it all dusted up in the bottom drawer. It's like, well, this is part of the problem. You know, you need to read the documents.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of times we don't spend enough time
on the documents.
Preparing for the, you know, and we were talking, my partner and I, we were talking about it actually this morning, that, you know, the team, and it's also the fast pace of the industry, right? You're looking for projects. Sometimes you get multiple projects at the same time. You're getting the team, you know. So like you said, I think you said the devil is in the details. I say the money is in the details, in the process.
Well, that is the devil.
And it's not, there's not enough work that we can do to get better at these processes, especially in all areas, right? As an architect, program manager, construction manager, contractor, electrician, plumber. It's an industry that has a lot of opportunities to become better at documenting.
Yes, documentation. And I think the other thing is organization is key. Like even myself, I have a smaller business now, and say I have 12 residential projects. Well, you know, I'm part of Builder Trend, so everybody has a portal and the latest documents are always on the portal, and people need to go get the documents themselves, and people have to be responsible for posting the latest document. And any emails or correspondence or schedules that you can do in an organized fashion so that everything, you know, because people walk around, they think the whole world is here. And, you know, and that's how you can get messed up very easily, because you're not really looking at the documents. You're looking at somebody talking about the documents, and you don't even know where the latest documents are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No,
if you had a good intention to go home on Saturday and actually study the documents like you would read a good novel, they're like, wait, which email is it? Wait, where, they have to be organized.
yeah. No, you're right. Absolutely. It's key, it's crucial. And
Mhm.
and in that, and obviously we know that not all types of personalities value organization the same way. So that's another topic.
Right.
But I'm sure
I
you
bet you're organized. I bet you are a very organized person. Are you?
have to. Yes, we have to. It
Right.
just costs money.
Right. And that's also how you can relax. If you know everything's in its spot and people can go get whatever information they need and it's organized,
Yeah. It's
right?
like a clean house. I tell my daughter, it's not that I want to be controlling or anything. It's just that when I get home and my house is clean, I have this sense of calm and
Yes.
peace.
Yes.
The aura around it is that no matter what happened at work, what's going on, my house is good, it's calm. It's like
Right.
a sacred place, right?
Yes. Yes. Even my desktop, like sometimes when I go from New York to here and here to New York, I come back and there's everything on my desk and I feel like I don't even know where I'm starting. If I take an hour to clean off my desk and layer up my jobs or whatever, I'm like, oh, this is a piece of cake. I just have these 3 things to do. But it looked like so much more because it was just in a mess.
Yeah.
So it's like, just being organized with those documents and having everything in a portal where people go get it. And that way, like I have somebody doing a rendering of a project, well, they have to have the latest documents. So if I just invite them to Buildertrend and everything's there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, tell me about, you have been recognized
Yes.
for your contemporary design in the desert. You live in Sedona, the beautiful place. Tell me more about that. I want to hear your trends. What made you be recognized? What inspiration do you get from the red rocks, the surrounding, the area? How do you get inspired? Tell me more about that experience or the life that you have as a residential builder.
So look, it all starts with a good hike in Sedona. Everybody goes hiking and it's kind of a spiritual place. It's sort of like one of my friends said, if you have a dream, it seems like it comes back bigger in Sedona for whatever reason.
The vortex, right?
I guess it could be the vortex. So, but when we first came here, like a lot of people, we fell in love and then we bought a lot and I built my first house. And then we saw there were no contemporary homes here. And this was 12 years ago. No contemporary homes. We built our first one as a spec house and the realtor's like, we don't really know how to sell this because there's nothing like this here. And basically I had 15-foot high ceilings and white countertops and monogamous or, tile that just looked like one surface instead of little subway tiles and certain things that you would see a lot in New York and LA. And then we found the people that were buying them were New York and LA people. So I started this trend of these spec homes and then ended up getting, just personal clients, custom home clients. And right now there's a lot of homes that are starting to look like my first home. But just the very large window expanse that's available now because window manufacturers do that. I mean, this window on my left side is 7 by 9. Okay. And that was 7 years ago. I could buy a 7 by 9, one piece of glass. So when everybody came to Sedona in the 50s, it was probably very hot. And so they had these small windows and heavy roofs. And so to just undo that and say, okay, my house is like a picture frame and the picture is out there. It's those red rocks are my picture frame. And so my house, some people say, looks a little bit, more like a museum. I go, but it is a museum because that's the painting.
Yeah.
So I just feel like high ceilings work because the mountains are so high and they're uplifting. And so you get uplifted with light colors and, so I'm just drawing from what's around me.
You brought the nature into you.
Yes.
So why do I need to just go hiking? I can be hiking here, enjoying it when I'm in my house. What a beautiful concept. I mean, you're not hiking.
Yeah, I bring like many windows go all the way down to the floor so that when you look out, the garden's right there and you feel like you're hiking in your house. Right, exactly.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
My kind of house.
Yes, well, let's do it.
I love it. I'm sure and you know what? That is wellness. That goes around with the way I see it, your spiritual journey,
Mhm.
your journey doing yoga, being connected, being present. You're bringing nature to you because you know what it does to our
Right.
spirit.
Yeah.
So why miss it, right? Why would you want to prevent yourself from connecting with nature just because of a wall? So let's just
Take it
create,
down. Just
yeah,
tear it down.
yeah.
Well, and I think it helps with just, when you feel good, you act well and people do want to follow you and you're more energetic. So therefore you're more optimistic and you basically just enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. And you live life from a place of fulfillment because
Right.
it's not only achieving and creating things and making money, it's also feeling fulfilled, full. And that cannot be fake, right? That's not fake.
Right.
That's your aura, that's your energy that
You can't fake it till you make it kind of deal on that one.
So let's talk a little bit about technology and AI. Tell me how technology innovation has affected you, your business, and where do you think the future of architecture and construction is in terms of the technological advances that we're seeing now that we're kind of at the beginning of it?
So definitely it's here to stay. One time I saw something where it's like an architect designed a house with 3 options and AI designed a house with 3 options. You couldn't hardly tell the difference between them. So
Yeah.
I think that AI will help design in the future. I think it should also start helping the construction industry in terms of, what else can we build as components that will go in, as one object, whether it's, the walls with the plumbing in it or whatever. I mean, a lot of that we've always talked about, like the prefab has never gotten a good name about it, but there's got to be a better way to do it than one man stacking one thing at a time, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how that's, going to come about, but what I do see is in the personal relationships that I have with a client, when I'm building a residence in particular, and suppose I'm talking to them about whether it's their bedroom or their bathroom, their closet, their pantry, there is definitely emotion and understanding of people's needs that cannot be represented by a computer. I mean, we are living beings. And if I can't talk to you or come visit you or see what you're all about or understand what your needs are because I'm understanding your lifestyle, I mean, unless somebody can put their complete bio in AI and say, okay, because of how you've seen where I've traveled to and where I've lived, what size pantry do I need? And that's not going to happen. Yeah. So I think that, getting closer to the people and understanding even, do you want to spend $400 on your bedding or do you want to spend it on a backsplash? I mean, how would a computer possibly be able to connect with somebody to understand what their priorities are?
Yeah. Well, we're here to see. I'm sure I've seen a lot of stuff, money put into building robots that can be, with kids, keeping company with kids.
Well, everybody probably will have a robot, everybody wants a maid. Okay, everybody is going to want a robot. But do you think that they'll really be able to have a conversation like we're having right now?
I don't think the human experience can be replaced, in my opinion. And especially I'm also very spiritual, so I think there's so much more that we're going to tap into as humans that we're not tapping into in terms of consciousness, and I think we're going to have this is going to give us an opportunity to evolve that area, that part of us, that part of the brain that we're not even tapping into. And I'm excited for that, because if we can save time in some areas and may perhaps have more time to do more hiking,
Right. I mean, even with a home, like I try to put as many cubic feet as I can into the main space, but then I have to design the bathrooms and maybe the second bedroom very efficiently to make up for it, right?
Yeah.
So I think AI can do certain things, but
Yeah.
hopefully that will give us more time to connect and understand people's needs. And, you know, like when I start a house with somebody, I'll say, what will make this house a home for you? Like, what personal experience did you have? Where did you live in your past that you want to like be part of in your own home? Like, what is going to make this home your home?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Now, let me ask you another question. You have broken barriers in construction as a female. Where do you see now in the next 30 years women in construction? Where do you see the diversification of women in our industry? Do you see the same percentage number of women in the industry? Do you see it easier, more difficult? How do you see it?
I think there'll definitely be more women. I think it's more accessible. I mean, I'm gonna find out a little bit more about that as I dive a little bit deeper into helping women. But I think that there's no question that there's more room for women. And in fact, I think some of the guys are like a little bit lazy about doing construction. They rather sit at a computer. You know, it's like putting tile down is not easy, right? It's backbreaking. But I think there'll be more women in construction. And I think that there's not enough leaders for these women in construction. And I think that, you know, basic things like wellness in terms of being fit and being confident, that's what's going to get them through. And I think that one of the things I always say is like, if I show up on a job site every single day for 30 days, for 30 years, and this man is the first time he's seen a woman in construction, well, who's got the advantage? I do. I'm doing this every day. Like, he's only been doing this once every 5 years. Well, now it's going to be more, but you know, so women have the power, and they don't know it, to be the winner when, you know, they're questioned about something because they're doing this every day.
I also, my experience with men is it's been in general that at the beginning there might be some judgment, right? But as soon as they can see what you're made of, the respect is there like forever. And
and I think it has to do with, like I said, you show them in the documents what's really going on, and there'll be like,
there's respect. Yeah,
it's new respect.
And I think to that note, we want to make sure, and I think this is true for everybody. It doesn't matter women or men. You definitely need to be prepared and deliver. Make a decision in your life to be outstanding at what you do. Do the best you can every single day and get better and better and better and better.
Well, I think unfortunately we still have to be better than the guys.
Yeah, you said it. So you want to teach, you want to mentor. Tell me more about that. How are you doing that?
So podcasts, okay, that's one thing. Are you
going to do your own podcast, or are you going to be visiting other people's podcasts like you're here?
At the time, I'm visiting other people's podcasts, and I'm doing, you know, I'm scheduled to do some live speaking at, like I said, you know, different groups around the country. And I think that, you know, through Instagram and LinkedIn, having real conversations, pointing out some things that have content worth reading. So it's not just, well, here I am at dinner and here's what I cooked today. Like, it's not that, or, you know, here's the house that just won an award. Okay, well, that's good. But what were really the challenges in making this house happen? You know, so I think a lot of that. And I did teach at NYU for quite a few years, and I taught how to read construction documents. And that was very interesting. What was interesting is who showed up. So when my elevator rep showed up from a Macy's project, I'm like, oh, you can't read construction documents? Uh-oh. You know, so I think that when you're teaching and then you understand who's listening, that's also a good indication of what you should be talking about and who you should be talking to. Yeah.
I love that you're so connected, because it makes you more powerful and more, you know, you drive the message from a place of empathy too, but also a place of integrity and a place of knowingness. You know the technical aspect of what you're talking about, but you do it from a place of assertiveness with love.
Yeah, you have to be caring while you're teaching.
Yeah.
And it's okay, you know, you want to make somebody smarter, more knowledgeable, more astute in different areas. So you don't start with what they are until they get there. You just congratulate them when they're there. Yeah.
And be a guide in the process.
Yeah.
of
So,
their growth.
in a lot of my projects, I'm like shepherding people through the process because it's probably the most amount of money that they've ever spent as a couple when I do a house for a couple. And it's not always smooth sailing, right? Different priorities, husband and wife, whatever. But I sort of feel like, okay, if you're on my back, I'm walking, you're following, and we're going to get there. And I get feedback from clients, like even yesterday, one client said, Jen really has amazing respect for all of your decisions and, how you've helped her through that. I mean, that's like an ultimate, compliment that people trust you. And I think it goes back to like you respond within the time that you say it. You bring them what they want to see. There's a vendor that doesn't deliver. Well, you talk about it and you go, there's other choices here, or there maybe not a choice. So how are you going to be okay with this and not just go ballistic and stress over it? Like there's no point in stressing, actually.
And so if we were to reflect in your career, and it's a good 30 years of your life, meaningful, impactful, and if you were to look back, what would be the one lesson, one challenge that really deeply changed who you are today? So to give you an example, life is about meaning, right? We all have tough situations, good situations. I think life is about contrast. There's never a bad thing, only bad thing happening, or only good things happen. There's always contrast, the day, the night. And I've learned to the most difficult job I've had, right? And it's not a one job, multitude of jobs with one client that has, I don't want to say strained me because that's too much, but it really has shaped who I am today. And
because the job was so difficult.
Because the client is so difficult, the culture of payment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Transform my company because we decided not to quit. Because if you quit, then you don't receive that, right? But if decided not to quit, decided, that there is a plan beyond us, that life always works for me, happens for me. And this client, this situation transform my company, but also transform me, my partner, everything. And so in a way, I'm very grateful. It's still pain. The pain is there. And so when I ask you that, what is the one thing, the lesson? I mean, you might have a few because you've had multiple areas of life that have been challenging and at the same time. But what would be one thing that you could say that profoundly shaped you as a leader, as a person, as a woman, as a mentor, who you are becoming today, who in the next season of your life? What is that thing that you're so grateful for that happened to you but was painful?
So there was a time, and it was just a very small interface where I had like the director of construction on a Macy's project. He asked me something and I gave him an answer right away. Because I was into like, I'm right there, I'm giving it to you. And he goes, Nancy, it's okay. You don't have to answer me right now. Like you could get back to me, because he kind of knew what I was saying was wrong. And I kind of knew, and I kind of just spit it out and tried to take it back. And he goes, it's okay. Get back to me tomorrow or something like that, So that really stuck with me. And I think that, a lot of times people look for advice and that sort of thing. And you shouldn't ever just shoot from the hip. You should really ponder what you're giving back, because that really sets the stage. And the other thing is, when you have a bad client or something happens, anything in life, in fact, it's not what happened to you, it's your response to what happened. So take a moment, think about it, think about your response, think about if it's worthy of getting upset or what have you. But if everybody would just like take a breath, it seems so simple, and then decide, okay, how important it is, what my answer is, what if I don't really know? There's going to be lots of times, and you go, I need some time. We don't give ourselves enough time. We're like, we got to do it right now. And it's like, actually, and I'm not saying, if somebody asks you something, you sit on it for 10 days. That would be, that is not business. But it's okay to take a moment and
think,
right?
like the book, think and grow rich.
Right, exactly. So that would be what I would say. Because it just goes into a lot of areas, and whether it's a 5-minute conversation or a 5-month decision on where you're moving your life, like, sit with it for a moment, reflect, and also see what is your body telling you to do? Because a lot of people, you'll go get advice, people will give you advice, and it's like, it's sort of deciding, on your partners in life or whatever. What does your heart tell you? So I think that's very important when you're in the middle of a major construction and there's so much stress and people want answers and whatever, like it's allowed to take a moment.
And breathe
And
and
breathe.
connect.
And breathe into it.
And connect and let your heart and your brain connect. There's power in that.
Right. Just you're still gonna move fast no matter what, but give yourself the time, like it's a gift.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Mhm.
Nancy, I just want to now meet you in person.
Okay, so when are you
I
coming?
I have to go to Sedona, and when you come to Miami, please let me know. We can go.
Absolutely.
We can go to Bikram.
Yes, that would be great.
We're so connected. We're so far away, but we're so connected. And
Yeah, I hear a lot of similarities.
Yes,
Even though
yes,
I was doing a lot of the talking, but I see the similarities of the questions that you asked.
yes. Well, you're a beautiful woman.
Thank you. You the same.
Very, very powerful. You're a blessing to this world.
Oh,
And I love the fact that you are thinking and giving more, giving back, empowering others around you. That's a beautiful mission. That means that you are a gift that keeps on giving.
well, I'm working on it. That's a good goal. Thank you for that.
You are. And if you need any help with that, let me know, because we're doing some of that here, some mentoring and coaching and and several things. So let us know if you need any guidance or support, but you're on the right path. You have so much to give. So I'm very proud of you. Thank you for reaching out. And we're here for anything that you need.
Okay, sounds fantastic. Listen, thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure to meet you, to know you. And yes, we'll definitely connect in some other ways.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you
Have a
so
beautiful
much.
day.
You
Thank you
too.
so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others in the construction industry. See you next time in Thriving in Construction, the podcast. Let's keep thriving and learning together.